Great. And I invite on stage Aleksandr Goncharov, the developer for Reef Technologies, with his presentation about moving to Litestar. Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. I will be talking about Litestar today. Hopefully, you're interested. That's it. The clicker is dead. Okay. So, how did I move to Litestar? Why did I decide to present? I work on Django for quite a while, and I was always interested if there's anything else besides it. So I moved to Fast API quite a long time ago and was looking for a framework on Python and found Litestar. It's quite featureful, fashionable, young, looks cool, so yeah, decided to promote it. This presentation will help you migrate if you decide to try it. Why I decided to move to Litestar rather than create something new? Usually because when you move, all the terrible accidents happen. You lose something, you find something new. So creating something new on a new framework is easier, but I decided to go the hard way. Why Litestar? Why am I talking about it? I have two frameworks, Fast API and Django. I put them on a straight line. On the right, we have Django. Tons of features, 15-year-old. On the left, Fast API, young and fast, just a micro framework. So Litestar is small, it's in between them, closer to Fast API. It's not as big as Django, but what is good about it? It's integrated with Alchemy. It has data storage tools, in-memory, on the drive, WebSocket support. Channel support. We can implement consumer producer pattern and a lot of other things that you would like to see in the framework. A typical issue of a new and fresh framework is that you would obviously say that it's new and not developed, but it's chicken and egg issue because if you don't use it, it won't get developed. So that's what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to achieve. Here's how I was migrating my personal blog, my application to Litestar. It keeps suffering from all those new frameworks. You just do pip install Litestar. It has extras. Say you want to work with a database, you want JWT. Then you put the extras there, and the extra packets are installed. Maybe it's not rocket science, but it's convenient when the framework takes care about the developers and defines some setups for the developers. So I started moving to Litestar. And the idea was, okay, let's rewrite everything. Let's kill Django and rewrite everything on Litestar. A good scenario, but definitely I would lose something. I was afraid that I'll forget something, and thus I decided to think slower. Strangler fig is a tree, is a plant that is depicted here. Imagine you have a tree, and it's your Django application. And some birds would put a strangler branch seeds into the tree. Then it grows such a construction, that the tree itself would not get enough food and it will die. So we have that fig replacing the tree. That was exactly the strategy for me. And it's a good strategy when you want to replace legacy solution with something new. So I wanted to create my first Litestar application. Here's how it looks. No Django monsters, looks very much like Fast API. That's what you need to launch Litestar application to render some page. As soon as I wrote it, I received the following warning. If you listen to the previous presentation, then the author was saying that if you call for something synchronous in an async context, Litestar will help you and tell you that they are calling a synchronous function as part of the event loop. You can either add async or use sync to thread, which will be a signal to Litestar that this is a blocking synchronous function that you need to run as part of the thread. So, or it is a synchronous function that needs to be fast and you need to run it. So those errors, typical for programming synchronous or asynchronous things, are good. And it ran without any setup, without any special motions. Why so? Because Litestar would take care of us. It will search for our applications using a number of paths, app, SJ application, API, and then it will look for app or the application factory or some function that creates this app or something that Litestar will return. It tries to understand what are we going to run. And so where is your Django, you would ask? This is that, small branch that we used to start. So you can launch Django under Litestar. Which is what I did. I'm importing my Django application and I tell to Litestar, just mount the Django application under this root. And of course I got a warning. Why so? Litestar says, your Django application does not have a type annotation. Add something, at least any. Django does not annotate anything, and Litestar says everything should be annotated. So Litestar is against Django, me too. So that's how the code looks. It's a function call that accepts scope, receive, send, and you need to guess what it is. Should we do PR in Django to add type annotation? But it can take many, many years. We tried to add some changes to Django, and they were never merged to the main fork. So when you have that big library, it's very hard to add something to it. So annotating Django is too difficult of a task, and thus I said, okay, let me do the following. Call this Django app would accept those parameters, but Litestar stopped arguing with me. And why do I mention this? Just to show you the difference of approaches. One framework would not have any type annotations, you are fighting with your code yourself, and Litestar would enforce best practices on you. So everything started working. Here's my site, and the static has disappeared. What's the problem here? The issue is that the Django can collect the statics. Django can have different applications like store or reviews, so each and every application would have some static files and styles that we will put in the folder. Litestar has no idea of applications, so I had to do a small hack and ask Django to gather all those applications and ask the Litestar to give them to me. Same as a framework, Litestar would gather and return them as asked. So looks like a Django application, but in reality it's launched through Litestar. Now, when we can launch Django, we can start replacing some parts. First of all, let's start with the models, ORM models that allow us to say what types of models are in the database. In Litestar, you can use Alchemy, Piccolo, whatever you wish. Django is requiring Django RM to be used, so Alchemy and Django RM are used. So in Litestar, you just say, set up Litestar with Alchemy support. It will set everything up by itself. So of course, I read the needed models from Django, and I tell Alchemy to please just read them from there. Not much of a difference. On the left, you see Django model. That's the post. You have a name, a picture, publication date. I wrote the same on Alchemy, just added the name of the table where it reads the post. And you see it works. Then we have views, the functions that receive user data and do something with it. Here we have class-based views. It's a class that you tell which templates to use, which models to use. So it's more of a declarative approach. And the issue here is that often you would see a lot of issues with inheritance. It can be inherited from two classes, then another class, then this becomes this needs a special site where you need to navigate among those classes, so it can be confusing. In a Litestar, it's just obvious is better than non-obvious, so we inherit a class from a controller and it can group some handlers for you. First of all, we inject the dependencies and tell it to use post reps for all the posts. It can read it, write them. So to get a post, I tell it, get it from here and put it into the template. No magic. I just explained what I want to get from the function. And it's imperative code. Obvious is better than non-obvious. Let's then have a look at the paths. When I come to a Django application, I am lost. Too much code. Which path represents which handler? Very hard to understand. And after reading what is where, everything is interconnected, and this flow of everything is too complicated. So Django tells us to set up the application and get a command that will help you. But Litestar will take care of us, and it has a built-in command that will show you which path maps to where. Small feature, available everywhere, but again, available out of the box on Litestar. Templates. I used Ginger Django templates. Maybe if you do templates in Python, you know about them. It's a function that creates an environment for the Ginger. It says use these templates. These are the data These are the global filters, and here you go. For this to work in Litestar, I just added one line. Litestar doesn't know where to take your templates, and you need to show it. How do I set up templates in Django? It's just settings.py with some variables and strings, and the IDE wouldn't know anything about your strings, just string. But it's a path leading to profile. But in Litestar, you need to create an instance and you need to pass the object that will instantiate some settings. So we would see what comes from where and how it's initialized. Okay, the admin panel. Django's admin panel is a killer feature. And everybody would say, no, they have an admin panel. You can manage your data. Very convenient. Maybe it's a specific thing. Not everybody wants it. You have microservices. Why would you need an admin panel? But in most projects, I need it, and I need it out of the box. Litestar doesn't have it. So my question was, it's a useful feature. Why don't you add it? And the answer is that Litestar has nothing to do with any database, any ORM. No alchemy. This admin panel is problematic. Creating an admin panel would be problematic. So I wasn't lost. And I said, okay, my admin panel will be the Django admin panel. I just use part of Django for the admin. That's the code that is used to create Django admin panel, but okay, at least it started working. Or not? Why did I follow this path? Because you find bugs. You find those holes. And I wanted to do a very simple thing. For some parts, I would want the admin panel, and for some others, I would want without. So my app crashed. I could not understand why some paths lead to Django, some not. So I spent a lot of time debugging it, and I understood it's not my problem, not my issue. I went to GitHub, looked at the issues. I didn't find my error there, but a similar one, 3 weeks old. There's two paths, and the path that was mentioned in the middle had to go to the mounted application, but it did not. And I'm like, okay, I have 4 paths. I need all of them to go to the right place. If the path doesn't exist, then I need 404. The admin panel should send me to Django, and the parameters should go to handler, and static paths should go to static handler. And in practice, this, of course, was very confusing. So I created an issue on GitHub and had experience of working and with the developers that I think is a great experience. Litestar has a guide on how to contribute. You cannot step left or right. There's a lot of tests, and to compare with more popular frameworks, 5,239 tests looks enough. Coverage is checked, so if you create some code and it's not test covered, and it won't work. You need test coverage. And I pushed my issue. And I said, guys, okay, this thing doesn't work for me, but please do confirm that someone will have a look. I was answered in 2 hours. They said, yep, doesn't work. I was added as contributor. And because I talked about the bug and it appears automatically, so the communication is very good. And no later than yesterday, my fix went into the master, so it's high level. It's very cool. If I were to, do the same with Django, I would not even expect an answer. So if you want to contribute to open source, this works perfectly fine. And if you come back to the admin panel, okay, so I had issues with Django, and I decided, okay, I will use the admin panel from someone else. Probably someone did it. So I went to Litestar Awesome GitHub story that has all the popular libraries for Litestar, and took my first admin panel that had all the most stars. People couldn't serialize one thread. And when I see those errors like this, I don't understand what's going on. And this shows the issue of, you can ask, why would we need Litestar? We can use FastAPI. We can add as many libraries as we want. But the answer is that foreign libraries don't guarantee to you that they will work with the current version of Python, of the framework, and nothing is guaranteed. So with Django REST framework, you would, one minor commit would destroy everything, and they had to roll back. So what is guaranteed? When something is part of the framework out of the box. If the framework tells you that, they support WebSockets, then I know the WebSockets will work and all the tests are passed. And of course, it is super important for me for the main functions to be included by the framework out of the box. So I said, no, thank you. I don't like this. And I thought, well, why would I try to start to launch something under Litestar? I just need an admin. I can set up any admin panel that can work with Litestar, and that's what I did. That's how I solved the issue. So for all the issues, there are some solutions. And of course, moving to this framework was not an easy path. A lot of things I didn't get. Some things I lost, many things I lost, just a couple of them. So first of all, I had Django Debug Toolbar. That's a very popular thing that allows you to have a look at what's going on with Django when you work with it. So you open a page and you see how many requests you made and how long it took them to work. So Litestar gives us other things, like we don't have any special tool, but out of the box we support the popular tracing and debugging, like OpenTelemetry and Prometheus. So it's not local debugging, it's a good solution to gather those metrics and catch them in prod. After Django, I didn't have a utility. I was missing my command line utility. It was uncomfortable for me, so I decided to write something of my own. And it was really fast. All the utilities that I needed, the command line utilities, all the code that I used for my first Litestar command. I can now call Litestar shell. I will have a session with the database and I can work with data. Very simple thing, very easy to do. So I liked it a lot. That's pretty much it. That's how I moved to Litestar. And the question is, why would I move? Why would I try Litestar? Besides the features, The speed is important. We create sites, applications, microservices, and we want them to be fast. Litestar would, of course, have the benchmarks, and same as with other applications, it's super cool. And other applications are slow. Here, it's compared with FastAPI, Quantum, Starlet, and of course, FastStar is the fastest. Okay, serialization compared to FastAPI API. Okay. Much faster. No. Did I trust it? Not really, because I need to go deeper in this topic and check whether they tell the truth. So there's a site called Empower, there's Python and other frameworks, and of course I went there. I didn't find Litestar, but I found a Starlight. The story is quite complicated, but the Starlight framework was based on Starlet, and it existed before Starlight. FastAPI is based on Starlet. Then they renamed it into Litestar, and on Tech Empower we have an old version. Okay, I thought, if the old version worked well, then probably the new one would be even faster. And I decided to trust this thing and started reading about the library. And it worked well. I cut a lot of intermediate positions, but the most interesting things are that the Starlight would be faster than Black Sheep. It's faster than Starlet, faster than FastAPI, and faster than Django. It's one of the metrics. You can look at others, but in general, if it's not faster than other frameworks, then anyways, it's good. There's a Dennis Anakin presentation who was also measuring Litestar speeds, and his comparison also comes to the same conclusions, that it's fast and it works well. Serialization-wise, we know Pydantic, we know it has 2.0 version that's even faster. Litestar doesn't use it. It uses message spec, another framework, library to serialize and validate. And by checking why it's so fast, I found 20,000 lines of C code. In Pydantic, you see Python code. In here, I fully believe it's faster because of the C code. Let's talk optimizations. Routing. We need to decide which function will process this or that request. If you look at the source code of FastAPI or Starlet that it's based on, it's just a cycle. We look, we get path, and we are looking for the handler. And here they decided to use the tree, a tree where every node will try to have as many symbols as possible. So here I have 8 words. They have the same V letter, and then they are separated in 2 categories with different letters. So we now have a tree that is split. Of course, the tree search is much faster than trying to exhaust all the options, and I decided to check. Their benchmark would say that they are the fastest, they work the best. I don't trust them, I would prefer to check, and that's why I generated the stupidest of applications with 150 paths, AB, ABC, ADE, all the parameters, random numbers, and created those 2 stupid applications, one on Litestar, one on FastAPI, just to look at how they handle the lot. In a real project, of course, you won't have 150 paths, you'll probably have 10 of them, 1. But for the sake of testing, 150 looked good. Probably no one will need more. That's how the application looked. Simple handlers that allow to accept specific requests, some address, and return something. Here I have 2, but I had 150 in total. And I started to benchmark this. I used Vegeto. I didn't know what it is until I started testing. It's a library that's very useful. It's made with Go and uses the last versions of Litestar and Faststack.
When we have 5 handlers, there's basically no difference between going through all of them sequentially or build some tree. But when you have 150 handlers, then of course tree wins by the factor of 2 almost. So indeed, this tree will help you speed up the code if your app is quite large. Like DTO, data transfer object. What is that? So I've copied this diagram from the Litestar site. It shows the client on the left, then the handler on the right, and you get some raw data from the client. Something happens with it, and then it turns into some convenient Python handler. So I decided to use some data structure which has a message, and in our app we want to work with it rather than with the raw data. So the client sends some JSON code. DTO automatically converts this into some object that we're convenient, that's convenient for it to work with, and then when it's returned, it's serialized JSON. So it's used quite a lot because you continuously have to convert data there and back. So under the hood, it's quite a simple thing. It's a class where there are several methods converting from Python dictionary to some structure that's of interest to you, converts to byte and then back from the bytes. But it works quite often. They use it all over the place. And so they did CodeGen, DTO. CodeGen is about automatic generation of code. And the first question asks, why would you want to have automatic code generation? We have Python, it's smart. It's been developed for a long time. It knows itself what to do with constants, replacing expressions soon. What else needs to be optimized there? In actual fact, there is a reason to it. Let's get under the hood. This is the way DTO looks with code generation. So instead of transfer data, transfer data bit ends, what do we create? This is the body of this create transfer data. Firstly, we create a body. It's just a set of some lines, some strings with Python code. So I thought that code generation is to create a syntax tree, manipulate with it, write it back into the Python code. No, in Litestar, it's just about working with simple strings. There are several strings that generate these Python strings, and then we just write def, function name, then insert some callable code and do fdev. So nothing more sophisticated. Why is it so important? Because the DTO, it's used for parsing, for validation, and transformation. It is used quite often in the framework. So if we are able to optimize it, we should gain in speed. Again, benchmarks from Litestar can say that the performance growth can be up to 2.5 times and even 3.5 times. And what's cool, you don't even need to do that. Well, I decided not to believe it so much. Okay, what else is being optimized if Python is optimizing everything? Actually, there are other things that can be optimized. So wrap up cycles, not call functions, don't do unnecessary branching, never to go into fields, and even reduce. As an example, I chose this optimization. I took it right from the code, simplifying a bit. It's about access to some field. If a field is optional in the structure, so the probability is high that it's not really there. So if we try to resolve it, then we'll get an exception. So on the one hand, if the field is mandatory, then the probability that it'll be there is really very high. So we better read it from the outset, otherwise we get an exception. And by the way, in modern Python's versions, it may not be so relevant because there's zero-cost exceptions. But nevertheless, this is the type of optimization we can do. Now, with the context, we can reformat it somehow so make sure it works faster. So do I believe it? Of course not. So I created these two data classes. The user has some name, surname, age, mandatory or voluntary fields, and they have a pet with a name and age, and decided to push this data into my application, see how it's going to use that. I did the GET attack and sent 1,000 requests a second during 10 seconds. So when we have simple data, one user and two pets, then code generation doesn't give you anything. So at the top you have regular DTO, below you have code gen. Virtually no difference. But when I added some complex JSON, 20 people with 5 pets each, I felt that it really works fast with code generation by the factor of 8, by the way. So, and I liked it, meaning that the developers are taking care of this. So we are moving to the end. As I said, features that the framework is offering us are really cool. The code is really cool. I translated my personal website on Litestar. It's flying okay. I wrote a demo app for a security bench, and it works fine. And that was super cool, and I didn't need to set up anything. So for some small project in microservices, I would choose a Litestar instead of Fast API or Django. This is a link to my website. You can read about me, you can read my articles, my papers. I write about all sorts of things. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Sasha. Thank you. So, questions? And by the way, there aren't too many of them, perhaps, because it's not about ChatGPT. Okay, Sergey Iknitsky has been asking questions, quite a lot of questions, actually. Why do you use PDM rather than Poly3? Is it a holy war? Actually, both have a right to existence. Actually, I'm a lazy development. It doesn't make a difference for me. If there's a log file and it's present in both places, I just ask some developers in the company what they use. They actually ran quite a lot of research comparing the products. I just said, give me an answer, what to use. And they told me PDM, and I started using it. And all my cases were covered by it, absolutely. Even some very specific one with the pinning of Git commits and something with the installation of some packages that are held in some other repository rather than PyPy. And it all worked, and I was happy. I didn't see any point moving. Okay, got it. And by the way, you remember that you have to select these questions. Alyona Polyakova. So what makes Litestar better than Fast API? Speed and batteries. I'm lazy. I want everything to be installed and working. I was never able to achieve that with Fast API. Again, Sergey Nilitsky, could you use regular for a URL?
Можно, регулярки не самые быстрые на самом деле.
Well, the regular expressions are not the fastest ones.
Все упирается в скорость. Я думаю, что
So
они, конечно,
it's all
тестировали
about speed. I
быстрее.
think they tested these
И
things,
я
what
даже,
runs
честно говоря, про
faster.
регулярки сам не особо
And
задумывался.
frankly, I haven't even
Ну, я
thought a lot
как бы я
about
программист,
regular
всегда думаешь,
expressions because
сейчас я
when you're
напишу
programming,
регулярку, и тут будет медленно.
I'm
Поэтому я
going to
стараюсь их
write a
избегать
regular
там какие-то
expression and it's
правила
going to
делать,
run
но с
slow.
так
So
же
you
спидом.
try to avoid them, creating some rules, and
Евгений,
perhaps
вопрос про
they
админку.
did the same.
У тебя есть
Sergey
модель
Shlanin,
Django и
a
описание
question
таблиц в
about
алхимии. Админка
the
Django будет
admin
работать только с моделями. Твои ручки теперь работают с репозиториями алхимии.
credentials. Another
Получается,
Django
тебе придется
admin only
дублировать все
works with
изменения в двух описаниях моделей
in
аккаунтов.
alchemy. There's a different admin
Деприк.
account. So
Ага.
it looks like.
Всё.
Let me read the question. I didn't get it.
Так, модель.
Okay. Django.
Я просто не понимаю, почему
I just don't understand
Я
немножко.
на самом деле
what Django has to do with
я
it.
старался
Actually, I wasn't duplicating anything.
описание,
I
конечно,
was
придется
trying.
дублировать.
Well, of course, you'll have to
Можно
duplicate
их
the
переносить, то есть мы
description,
удаляем
but you can also
когда нам нужно
remove
описание
them. Yes, for the
ради
Django
описания тех же моделей в алхимии.
admin account, you'll need descriptions of the model,
Это неудобно,
and
я выбрал сложный путь. На самом деле, как я
you need
сказал,
that in
проще
alchemy.
всего
Well,
описать
that may not be
без
convenient. In
внимания
fact,
этих
the
Это
simpler
изобретение
way
было для
is
того,
to write
чтобы
everything
найти
from
все-таки
scratch and
интересные
not
темы,
to
которые
do
я
these
бы рассказал.
perversions. These perversions may only be needed to
Артем, в твоем
explain
докладе
those
вы видите,
subjects that
Litestar
I
имеет
covered
несколько
today.
утилит-командной строки,
Lifestar has
облегчающих
several command
разработку.
line
Есть
utilities,
ли в нем
simplifying
генерация
development.
OpenAPI и допинг
Does it
по
cover generation of open
Первый вопрос.
API?
Всякие, да, вот, ну, он не только для того,
Yes,
чтобы рендерить
it's
шаблоны,
not
вы также
only to
можете
render
абсолютно тем
templates.
же
You
синтаксисом
can
создавать API-шки.
use
И
absolutely the
вот что меня
same
купило, да,
syntax to create
Django,
APIs.
у вас есть вьюхи,
What
которые, ну,
actually
там,
won me
рендерят
in
HTML. И
Django,
чтобы создать API-шку, вам
you
надо
have
ставить
features that
Django REST
render
Framework, изучать его,
HTML. In
настраивать, или
order
там Django
to
Ninja.
do
Что
an
вам нравится?
API, you need to
FastAPI умеет
install a
делать мне
framework.
API-шки,
So,
он не умеет
Fast
делать
API
коробки, там,
can
хорошо
do
рендерить
APIs and it
шаблоны. Ну, то
can't
есть это не его
render
основная фича. В
templates
Litestar
out
тебе
of the
говорят,
box.
ты можешь
It's not.
делать, что
And in
хочешь.
Litestar, they
API-шку
tell me you can
сделать,
do whatever you want.
сделать
You can make an
какой-то
API, or
шаблон.
you
И
can
все это
do
один и тот же
some
синтакс, и все
template
это с коробки
rendering,
в
and
своем
it'll be
фреймворке.
covered by the same syntax right out of the
Там,
box
конечно, есть
in
всякие
your
автоматические
framework.
генерации
And
вот
of
этих
course,
вот OpenAPI-шек.
there's automatic
Естественно, каждый
generation
из
of
них
open
имеет
APIs.
коммутации.
Naturally, how can you do
Так, и
without that?
продолжение
Yes, it
вопроса.
has all
Есть ли
this
в фреймворке
functionality.
встроенные инструменты для тестирования endpoints или
Are
подходит
there built-in
HTTPX?
tools to test
Есть ли
endpoints
в фреймворке
in this
встроенные инструменты для
framework?
тестирования
Are
endpointов
there
или подходит
inbuilt
HTTPX?
tools to test
Ага.
Насчет тестирования
frameworks
вообще, кстати, не залезал
or
туда еще.
HTTPX
Насчет
is
HTTPX,
matching?
там
I don't know
действительно
about
есть
testing.
поддержка из коробки.
Regarding
То есть
HTTPX,
HTTPX
yes,
такое,
there's out of the
это
box
позволяет вам
support.
написать какой-нибудь
What does this HTTPX mean? It allows you writing? No.
протестирование.
Regarding
Не
testing.
смотрел, если честно, вообще.
To be frank, I haven't looked at
Просто
testing
не
there.
возникало пока нужды, поэтому еще
I
не
just never had a need, so I can't answer this question.
Так, еще
Okay.
Яхницкий опять.
Again, from
Есть свежие бенчмарки
Yakhnitzky.
на сайте Litestar старшего года?
Are there fresh
Свежие
benchmarks
бенчмарки есть на сайте
on the
Litestar
Lifestyle
старшего года?
Я не
website
знаю,
that
какие
are
там, какого
older
там,
than a
каковы
year?
там даты, бенчмарки.
I don't know
Есть
about the
репозиторий,
dates of
который
the
можно
benchmarks. So
скачать
they
и прям
have a
вот запустить
repository that you can download
бенчмарки
and
прямо на своей
like
машине.
run
Я это попробовал
doing
сделать.
benchmarks on your own machine. I
У
tried to
меня
do
оно не
that.
совсем запустилось, но я не очень,
It
на самом
didn't
деле, доверяю
quite
таким
launch,
штукам. Мне
but
больше
frankly,
нравится
I
самому
don't
чем
really trust
потыкать.
these things.
Вот.
I
Поэтому,
like to
если у вас
poke
есть
myself.
желание
If
именно
you have a
смотреть,
desire
вот есть репозиторий,
to take a look at
пожалуйста,
fresh
скачивайте,
benchmarks,
запускайте.
there's a repository, so you can download and run.
Привет.
Vitaly
А
Levchenko,
есть ли
hi.
кейсы, где Litestar хуже?
Do you have cases where Lifestar shows worse results than Fast
Когда вы
API?
пытаетесь его внедрить, потому
I
что
think it's worse when you're
типа
trying
другой
to
фреймворк.
implement it because it's a
Все
different
привыкли на
framework.
фастапе, да, уже с
Everybody
закрытыми
used
глазами,
to
всех
Fast
привыкли
API.
сразу
They
на
can
фастапе
work
работать, а тут
there
покупаешь
with
свой
their eye
фастап,
closed.
который еще там
All the
с
newbies
какими-то
are being
багами,
taught Fast
и,
API, and
кстати,
then
надо в нем
you
реально
just
разбираться
barge in
местами. То есть
with
я бы сказал,
some
что
Life
ну,
Star
теряется
with its
какая-то часть
bugs. I could say that some developers get lost because of this threshold of complexity that's still too high for Litestar. So if you want to have something super stable and to be sure that everybody knows how to work with it, then Fast API. If you want to try something new and open source, then Litestar. Okay, great. So we got some more questions. Have you tried Black Sheep? Wasn't it Nikolai who asked this question? No. Nikolai is not here. It was a remote. No, I didn't try. Actually, Black Sheep is a micro framework, and I was looking for some combined. But I think it runs better than anything on benchmarks. Yuri Starovoit. So, baseline. If you have slow Django, so why would you need Starlight as a wrapper to the old suite? Well, I tried to do that. It's clear that I have an online store on Django. I would die if I had to rewrite it, and there's no point doing that. Migrating from Django to Litestar, I don't think it makes sense for any reason rather than you are interested as an enthusiast. Okay, let me show this question to you once again. For MSG spec, CodeGen doesn't work. It's only for D classes. Have you compared what's better? And by the way, I wasn't aware that message spec doesn't work in CodeGen. And I haven't really touched it. It's somewhere there. It runs somewhere inside in that out-of-the-box solution. Actually, I'm quite curious to compare. So as one can see, CodeGen does work. But I think message spec still runs faster because it's pure C code. Well, that would be an interesting battle to watch. Okay, DM. Thanks a lot for the presentation. Does this framework has built-in authentication and user model? Well, it has JWT. It doesn't have user models built in. Why so? Because there's no really database there. There's a repository. Litestar user, I think is the name, that addresses what you're mentioning, that supports users. But again, it's not an out-of-the-box solution. I'm not sure that they're going to add it just because there's no strict hook to a database. Is a Litestar ready for production? Production ready? Yes, it's production ready. And more than that, Denis, who was helping me with this presentation, he works in Raiffeisen, and they use Litestar for their microservices. So more than that. So it's running in one of the major banks, you know. The question, tricky question. The catch. So benchmarks are especially treated in the source code through caching. Well, actually, I don't believe other people's benchmarks. I write my own. So maybe it's so. Maybe you write some specific code which runs well on our framework and not so well on other frameworks. I don't believe it, so always try yourself. And again, Sergey Ikhnitsky, the most active person. Are you planning to migrate to UV from PDM? I got you, UV, which is quite in the trend today. Again, I came to one developer and asked, so why don't you use UV? He said some feature was not, it does not work there. And in PDM it does. So, you know, I'm a lazy person. Before I decide, I ask people what they use. And so I don't have any plans to migrate. Okay. I have no more questions, and we're just at the time limit. Alexander, so which question do you like? I like the one about model duplication because it's really subject to the question about the admin account. Yes, it was very good and spot on. Sergey Shlanin, are you here? There he is. Sergey, one of the active
Поздравляем
people
Сергея.
asking questions today. Congratulations to
Большие
Sergey.
аплодисменты Александру.
Give him a hand and a round of applause to Alexander.